Hi, Gary Stearman. Welcome to another Prophecy Watchers Daily Update, and we're very pleased to have in studio our old friend Avi Lipkin. Avi, always good to see you.
Always great to be here. Thank you.
And the reason we're so pleased is because every time Avi comes, we get deeper and deeper insights into what's going on globally, internationally, politically, in the United States and in Israel. And Avi, I want to kick this thing off by talking about Donald Trump, the new president, and what I see as an improved relationship between the United States and Israel.
Yes, indeed. Many of us in Israel were saying, that Netanyahu has to maintain a low profile till Obama's out of office. And this is what Netanyahu did. I'm taking a little bit of liberty. I always take liberty when I'm on your programs. But I see President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu as alter egos. They're both very Western-minded. They're both very nationalist. And by the way, American nationalism and Israeli nationalism go hand in hand. And they're both quasi-religious. In other words, Trump is not a Christian fanatic and Netanyahu is not a Jewish fanatic. But they have an overall fantastic grasp of history and where this is all going and what needs to be done. And even in the question of transferring the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which Trump committed to doing, and I think that Netanyahu was saying to Trump, you have a lot of work to do first to strengthen your position as president of the United States before you go into a frontal war with the whole Arab world. And I think Trump was very pleasantly surprised by the things that Netanyahu said to him. And so I think we're going to see very, very improved relations between Israel and the United States. The alliance is much strengthened. Even under Obama, the alliance between the Israeli military and the American military were very strong.
So how about the Israeli man on the street? How is this being accepted in Israel?
There is a striking parallel between the Israeli population and the American population. If you look at the Knesset website, if you look at the results of 20 different elections in Israel since 1949, you see that with every election, the right wing and the religious parties together go up by 1 to 2%. Today, out of 120 deputies in the Knesset, members of Knesset, 120, we have 67. That's an absolute majority who are religious and nationalists. The media is still a socialist left-wing holdover, always attacking Netanyahu, never happy with Netanyahu, very much as the American media is constantly attacking Trump. And I think what we saw in the last elections in the United States was also the pendulum swinging back to the right. And in America, you have 8 years Democrats, 8 year Republicans, and back to the Democrats, back to the Republicans. And it was a fantastic victory for President Trump and for the American people.
Now, those of you who have gotten to know Avi and to know Prophecy Watchers realize that we carry a lot of Avi's books. I'm holding here 7 books. And I want to spend some time talking with Avi about Islamic rivalry. ISIS and Iran are fighting for the heart of Islamic identity. This is in the news all the time. That is to say, the Iranians are always lurking around the edges of the news, very quietly, sort of poised in the background to strike when the iron is hot. Things are really strange in the Middle East right now. Help us to understand, by the way, and to understand what Avi has written in this book.
Well, firstly, this book, Islamic Rivalry, is totally up to date. I wrote it 2 years ago, totally up to date. There is nothing outdated in this book. It talks about the relationships between Russia, Poland, Ukraine, and that trilateral relationship with the Turks, because the Turks are in with the Ukrainians. They're in with the Europeans against the Russians. The Turks hate the Russians for 1,000 years of war between the Turks and the Russians. So the Russians naturally will support Iran, which is Shiite, and Bashar al-Assad, Shiite, and the Iraqi Shiite regime, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen. The Americans have been supporting primarily the Sunnis, who are backed by Saudi Arabia and Saudi oil and money.
Right.
Qatar, the Emirates, Turkey, Egypt. It's been a traditional alliance of decades. So the problem today is now something that if you're a Christian, you have to ask yourself the question, do you want to see the annihilation of all the Christians in the Middle East? If you want to see the annihilation and the obliteration of Christianity, support the Sunnis. Now, Bashar al-Assad is not a good guy. There are no good guys in this war in Syria. But it just so happens that Bashar al-Assad represents 10% of the population, which is Shiite, 10% which is Christian, 10% which is Druze, and the rest are Sunnis and Kurds and Yazidis. In other words, 50% of the population of Syria backed Bashar al-Assad, backed by Russia, backed by Iran. The Sunnis have one message, and that is to wipe out all the minorities and to wipe out the Shiites as who they see as infidels. ISIS has plans, even though it looks like they're on the retreat, but the other Islamic fanatic groups, Al-Qaeda, Jabhat al-Nusra, these all have the same plan, which is to wipe out the Shiites and wipe out Christians and Druze and others.
Now, you've said that Europe is more or less coming unglued these days.
Right.
And, of course, there's the refugee problem. Literally hundreds of thousands of refugees pouring into Europe. What's going to happen there politically? I know you believe that the European Union is coming apart.
Well, you know, President Trump made a comment about Sweden, and everybody, all the media jumped on Trump, and I'm reading the emails every day that I'm getting from Sweden, from my sources, and the Swedes are all saying Trump is right, you know, and there's crazy stuff going on in Sweden. There's crazy stuff going on in Germany and other countries.
Denmark, Norway, Sweden.
Right.
I hear these stories from all over. France, it looks like the European Union is being attacked from the inside out, but on the other hand, they're failing economically as well.
Right. You know, I have to tell you, I love the Italians. And I eat at the Olive Garden every day. Don't tell the rabbis. And I love the Italians. They're humanitarian, they're civilized, they're family people. Italians are great. They send their navy to the Libyan coast to pick up the refugees leaving Libya. And they bring them to Lampedusa, which is this little Italian island, and from there they're processed and they're sent into Rome. And so the ISIS, you know, instead of saying, thank you, it's Italy for being humanitarian and helping our people, the ISIS says, these Italians are stupid. They took in 4,000 of our vanguard terrorists. They're going to blow up the Vatican, kill the Pope, and take over Rome. And that's the approach of the Islamic world towards the Christian Europeans. I think there's going to be a very great revival in Europe, which will happen, very great Christian revival as a result of these Islamic attacks, which I'm predicting in Europe and also in the United States.
You know, this echoes what happened in the Middle Ages with the Islamic invasions that came up through Byzantium, up toward Europe. And at that time, there was a tremendous European revival, a Christian revival.
The Crusades were merely a natural reaction to the Islamic invasions. And now the Muslims are saying that we took Europe 1,000 years ago, Spain, Portugal, France, south of Italy, we're going to take it again. And the Turks believe, you know, they reached the gates of Vienna. That belongs to the Turks. And they still have their plans. And, you know, nobody's studying the history. Nobody's remembering the history. I see some very crazy things happening.
Man always forgets, it seems like. Short memory.
It's in this book.
It's in this book. It's called Islamic Rivalry. It's in our online bookstore. By the way, prophecywatchers.com. Just click on the online bookstore, scroll down, you'll find the Avi Lipkin section. You can see all of his books, including this one, which you wrote in 1997, and you were telling me that a lot of people are, this is called Is Fanatic Islam a Global Threat? You were telling me that a lot of people are reading this 1997 book and coming to you and saying, this is current events.
Right.
And you wrote it in 1997.
My wife and I were now in Florida and other places, and they said, we picked up the book, we reread it to see if what you said was still actual. Everything is still actual.
We live in interesting times, and interesting times involve interesting people. And I love the fact that you're on top of this, that you visit with us occasionally, you kind of keep us abreast of world events. What's the most important thing in your vision right now as you view this whole developmental system we're going through?
Well, on the one hand, I see the pendulum swinging back to the right, politically and religiously, in America, in Europe, and in Israel.
And I think you're right about that.
But I think that this is going to cause the fanatic terrorists who were basically laying back and letting what they call the moderate Muslims take over America in a peaceful way. And these fanatics are going to say, no, we have to go back to the sword. So I'm hoping, I'm praying God I'm wrong, but I think there will be more attacks on the United States.
So as long as America wants to lapse into faithlessness, the enemy would stand by and let them do it.
Right.
But if there's a revival, the enemy would be alerted and say, no, we've got to stop this.
Right.
Interesting. Interesting times. Avi Lipkin, one of the most interesting people you'll ever meet and talk to. Read his book, Islamic Rivalry. If you haven't gotten a copy, we have it right there in our bookstore, easy to access. And by the way, we have very rapid delivery systems, so you'll get it in a hurry. ProphecyWatchers.com and click on the online bookstore. Avi, you've got to come again, and you've got to do some longer programs. This update is not long enough. Avi Lipkin, our eyes and ears in Israel. I'm Gary Stearman. You keep watching. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.